definitions and terms. Like if you really think about the way definitions and terms are pitched to us by our Congress people and and the system and things, they'll tell us that on the left is communism and on the far right is fascism, and then democracy is in the center. Now, if you really think about this, a spectrum really should be collectivism on the left, which is all of the different variants, that being communism, fascism, etc. Then in the center would be democracy. And then far to the right, just before the end of that spectrum, would be a constitutional republic. And then finally ending up just short of that, anarchy. And I think that's where we get into trouble, is when they tell us that right-wing is fascism, which is just a variant of collectivism.
Well, actually, fascism is an economic term, and it should be used as such. Corporatism, by its very name, corporazione was the Italian name for it, and that was Italian fascism. American corporatism is, in fact, fascism. We call it corporatism because nobody wants to confuse the American people that fascism doesn't mean Nazism. They prefer it that way because then you never will look at your own governance, your own Congress, Senate, and the corporations that rule our country as actually being a fascist regime. They can't have you understanding that.
Craig, the socialist, Bernie Sanders, who's a Democrat now, does he have a chance?
Well, no, he doesn't, because the Democratic Party is set up differently than the Republican Party. That's what I was getting at when I said I decided to post two files for people to read to understand. The Democratic Party changed the way the electoral system works. The Republican Party did something different. But in the Democratic Party, Bernie Sanders can win by 38, 40%. He can win the votes every time. But the delegates have the freedom to go with Hillary, and they obey their masters.
Okay. Now the Republicans are different.
How many votes and how popular Bernie is, he won't win the delegates. That's already guaranteed to Hillary.
I've had some
the system that way on purpose.
I've had people call my show regarding the Republican ad, saying that they've got some kind of new rule where you need 51% of 8 states in the primaries. What is that? Have you heard about that?
No, if you look at, go ahead and, if anyone is interested in trying to weed through the gobbledygook, the language of it, the Republican Party system does work differently. And that's actually, I have a feeling, had more to do with getting rid of Jeb Bush than my efforts, certainly. I don't think I had even a 1% push to expose Jeb Bush to being driven out. Like you said, he hasn't gone anywhere either.
No.
So, if we have a three-way split between Ruby... Oh, by the way, do you remember what happened to Ronald Reagan? Does anybody even remember? Ronald Reagan was a very popular president, won absolutely hands down.
Right.
And who hated him the most during that campaign?
Who? Tell me.
George Bush Sr.
Really?
Voodoo economics. George Bush Sr. trashed Reagan at every turn. And Reagan really never liked George Bush, period.
And then became his vice president.
Because Henry Kissinger, David Rockefeller, the elite were at the hotel at the convention, and they told Reagan, guess what, brother? This is how our world works. You will take George Bush Sr. as your vice president.
What if he said no?
He couldn't. And I don't know what the level of threat they're capable of, but if you think...
Would they? Would they?
I think they have the ability to demonstrate to you that the world is very different inside the Beltway than the American people have any idea. And I don't think anybody except the George Bush Sr., who already was an oligarch and an elite CIA director, Zapata Oil. He was Brown Brothers Harriman. The family was already rich and powerful as an elite oligarchy. And so he's the only one I think didn't get an eye-awakening moment when he walked into the White House. But Ronald Reagan certainly did.
Strange bet.
Donald Trump will as well.
San Pedro, California, Christian's turn on Coast to Coast. Hey, Christian, go ahead.
Hey, George, and God, I can't believe I got on. I just wanted to say that, oh God, I'm just so excited. I just had a brain fart right now. I'm talking to the guest.
You got the guest, Craig Hulet's with us.
Craig, yeah, Craig. Listen, Craig, I've been listening to your radio on your website, your other radio appearances for a long time. I woke up to you, brother, and I want to say thank you for letting me see the light to how the world really works and is run. Wanted to ask, something I wanted to say. I wanted to put my 5 cents into the conversation tonight. First of all, I'm 41 years old. I'm unemployed, on food stamps and unemployment benefits. The only work that I can find is part-time, and I'm sure that with a lot of the callers who've been calling into your show in recent weeks have been very young and saying pretty much the same thing. I listened to the Republican convention this evening, and I decided that pretty much I'm going to go with Trump. But with so much with what Craig Hulet has said, essentially with this one world government oligarchy and decisions, essentially Congress already being bought, and theoretically the president is not elected, he is, in quotes, selected. Why should we bother voting in June here? Because I'm in California, because we have something in June coming up in the November election.
You've got a huge primary coming up.
Why should we bother voting if the decision essentially has already been decided? And also, there's something that Craig and I do, which is a lot of young people don't do anymore. We actually read books. And there are two books. There are two books that I'm reading right now. I wanted to get Craig's opinion on Bloody Treason by Noel Flyman. What does he think about that? And I'm also thinking of getting Webster Griffin's Tarpley's book, The Unauthorized Biography of George Bush.
And Webster's been on the program quite a lot before that. But go ahead, I'll let you react to his thoughts on why vote.
Well, I think that's the reason Jeb Bush had to leave. He had to go really far away because they were voting, and they weren't voting for him. So it does matter. That's the one thing the oligarchy could never count on. And they really did count on it this time.
I would have thought they would have tried to get those electronic voting machines in everything they could do. They would have tried to.
Well, the mistake they made, if you look at the documents I posted, one of the mistakes they made is the 4 primaries that come up first are selected for a reason. That's so that states that are very small population or an almost entirely minority state like South Carolina, those 4 states were selected to have the vote first, because if it went to Texas, Florida, New York, California first, there's not even the point of being in New Hampshire voting then. So this was to give those 4 states
a feeling like they're doing something.
Exactly. Yeah. They're allowing them to actually participate and their vote mattered. That's where I think Karl Rove, and I love saying this, I think Karl Rove screwed up. And he doesn't make mistakes, that guy. He's deadly dangerous, Karl Rove is.
Well, then,
but he was wrong, because in those 4 states, if Jeb Bush had not come out for the presidency until after those 4 primaries, this would have been a whole different horse race.
You think so?
Yes.
Because he wouldn't have been looked at as a loser.
Exactly. The first 4 primaries, they looked at him and just go, I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe they heard Bush's name too many times. But again, I'll repeat. I've been saying this.
See,
the oligarchy chose Jeb Bush when his brother was still in the White House, and I was saying we can't have that.
I think Jeb thought he was a shoo-in.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
He's got to be in shock.
One of their miscalculations is he shouldn't have even jumped in the race until after those 4 states.
Now, is he through? Let's assume Hillary wins. Does Jeb Bush pop up in 4 years?
Well, if they were going to do that, why wouldn't they go to Donald Trump and say, Donald, do you really want to be president? Because, when you're president, you can get hurt really, really bad, and maybe you'll be better off if you have Jeb Bush as your vice president.
No, that's an interesting twist.
That's what they did to Reagan.
That is an interesting twist.
I hope not, but
I have not heard Donald Trump talk about a VP candidate with him yet.
No, and I think he's going to have... You know why I think I'd like to see Donald Trump win?
How come?
Chaos. I love
the idea. We need more chaos?
Nietzschean kind of chaos, where you look at America and the limbs of America's trees are all withered